Let's go ahead and make use of the file reader input. So in our index.js, we are done with the styling, so I'm just going to close this for now. I'm going to import the file reader input in the index.js. So we have to wrap the upload tab, I guess. Everything in the upload tab has to be that's the image. It has to be wrapped inside the file reader input. So when I save this and quickly go back here, so I kind of brought this in a separate page because I don't want it to be conflicting with other tabs. So when I click on this, you can see right now I can actually make use of the browse feature from JavaScript because of the file reader input components that we just wrapped together on our image. So for the file reader input, I want to add some what do I say, some settings to it, and also a little bit of inline styling to it. So we want it as a binary. So all these things are just in the documentation. So we can give it an ID, but right now we are not working with ID. But I'm going to put an onChange, and I'm going to bring a functions called handle change. Also have to make it a multiple to true so that we can be able to grab multiple files. And one more thing is to add the inline styling. I said just a width of 100% and also a height of 100% because you want it that even if you click in any area of this, it should definitely be like that. So it's because of the handles change function which we did not create. So I'm just going to create that handle change. It's going to be a function. So the handle change function is going to be accepting any file whenever we select those files and open it. So it comes with two bindings, the E and the results. The result is where the files are. So we have to look for each of those results. So let's just give it a res value. So we can use the structuring to pull from the result. We can pull the configurations or I don't know what to call it, something like the E configurations. Then we can pull the files together, add from the rest. So I'm just going to use the array destructuring. From the rest value we want to get and the file. So we can now call our action. So I'm going to create a function called upload action. Then we can pass our E, or we can also pass our file. But I think I should just pass my file because we are dealing directly with the file. So we don't have this upload action created. So the way we can do that is to quickly come over to our actions. Let's create a file called upload, let's just say media action. So let's just give that a plural name in case you want to add many actions to it. So we have to add upload cons, export cons upload action, which is going to be an async because we're using the Redux thunk. Then we can use the dispatch in case you want to dispatch, and can just wrap that. So quickly just add this so that you don't have any error over there. So we have to create our action. So we have not done that. We can create a file called types.js. I mean our types, not actually our actions. So we have to export add file to list, which is going to still be the same text. Then we export that. So it's going to be export const add file to list. So this is what we're going to be using to dispatch the files that we selected to our state. Then from there, we can now grab it in our media action, then send it together to our backend, because we are still going to create an API that's going to be accepting all this. So we can quickly import this from the types. So it's called add file to list. So for this one, is going to be accepting a file and quickly. So what we just have to do now is to grab those files, but before we grab that file, we have to make sure that we connect our index.js to Redux. So the way we can do that is to make sure that we have an active reducer. So let me just go over to my reducer file. So in the reducer.index.js, we have the media reducer. So quickly I can just import, connect. So I sometimes I prefer to do things this way because it kind of makes me feel comfortable. So I don't know for you. Anyhow, you can use the use selector to have access to your state, but for me, I do prefer it like this. Or you can use the dispatch. Use dispatch to dispatch directly, but it's all your choice. It all depends. Like even if someone is new, he can watch this video and actually learn something cool. Let me just quickly go down and connect that, but let's make sure we create our map state to props. It's going to accept the state. Then for the state, we have to target the media, and the media is going to be coming from our reducer, which is state.media, which is very simple. Then we can wrap that with the higher order components connect. Then for this one is going to accept the map state to props. Then it's going to accept our methods. So remember we have a method called upload action. So quickly, let me just make this a Redux. I can now import from. So let's go over to the store actions, media actions. Then in the media action, we can use the structuring to bring in the upload action. So that's exactly what you see me put here, because we want to have access to this upload action inside our components. So we can still use the structuring to just bring that. So that's why you can actually see me use it here. And that's why it's being highlighted whenever I select this one. So whenever I dispatch, it's going to definitely dispatch everything or just trigger actions inside our upload action method. So let me save that and check whether we do have an error. So right now you can see we do not have an error and our page is not refreshing. So quickly, let's just go over to the media actions. So whenever we select a file, we have to grab some data from our store or from our initial state. So we can go over to the reducer, media reducer actually. So in the media reducer, we actually have an initial state. So in this initial state, I'm just going to add file list to it, which is just going to be a simple array. So I have to bring down the case of add file to list. So remember that we created that action. So I just have to quickly import it. So sorry for my wrong speaking. So I just have to import this from the types. So add file. I think am I saying the correct thing or did I? Okay, sorry guys. I kind of used the wrong directory. That's why. So actions types, because this is supposed to be recommending it for me. So here we want the case of add file to list. So the add file to list is going to return an object. So the object is going to contain our initial state, which is exactly what you see from here. We just have to spread that. And let me just kind of let's just kind of go straight to the point now. We'll see come back to this, so I don't want to confuse things together. So whenever we dispatch a file or files, it's going to definitely come to this current reducer and then do whatever it has to do in order to inject that into our state. So let's go back to our action. I'm just going to close this. So what our action is going to do is going to first check whether the file we have is contained in the reducer. Or let me kind of console.log file for now so that you can understand what I'm talking about. So let's just quickly open our console. So I'm just explaining this because it's a crash course. I don't want to rush things together. So you can see whenever we select files, you can see those files are being console.logged in our browser, because in the action itself, I console.log all those files. So that's exactly what you see here, and the name of those files is contained together. So we want to check whether these files exists in our reducer. So the way we can do that is to grab the data from, we can get the state. Let's go target the media. So do not forget to bring the get state here, because that's the way we can access our previous state. Then we have to create a let variable called files, which is going to be an array. So this files is just going to let's just make it this way. It's just going to accept all the files that we uploaded. So I just have to make this plural. So what I have to do next is to check whether there is files, and also if files.length is greater than 0. All we just have to do is to check whether it really exists. So we check for existing files, which is going to be checking from the data.file list. So remember that we created an initial state of file list, just an array, but we have to make use of the map right now to check whether those files is contained in those file lists. So we just grab the names for now, f.name. So I just have to now filter from those files. So let me just kind of make this file. So what I have to do is so whenever we filter, we want to filter out the one that is contained already in our initial state. So the way I have to do is return the ones that are not in the existing files. So sorry for this typo, but we want to make use of the name just like the way we brought this. We just have an array of names only, so we just want to make sure that the file we are adding currently is not contained in our initial state, so that we don't have multiple files we're going to upload, or same file being multiple that we are just going to upload to our server. So we have to check whether it is included, and that happens to be just the name. So if all these things went perfectly, let's just kind of console.log files again. So let's save and let's select multiple files. Actually, nothing is inserted into our state. So let's just go ahead and check where this error is coming from. So we're actually checking whether we have the file. I guess I just have to use F here because I don't want a clash. Well, I think I didn't use includes. So let's go ahead and save that again and refresh. It says f.name. So we are having this error because I cannot use the same name for the variables. Take for example these files we are actually getting from here. It's exactly the same thing I use in the let variable. So I'm just going to change this to media. So just forgive me for that mistake. So I just have to change this to media files. And right here we can just bring in the media files. So I think that solves it, because let's go ahead and console.log files, and let's select any single file right now. So you can see inside that array we have that single file. So even if you select double, it's going to be 2 array with files. So what we actually did here was to bring back an array with just the file names that's already contained in the previous state. Then we check whether those files actually does have the same name with the current file we are uploading, or current files we are uploading, using the filter method. Then we are returning a new array of files. Then whenever we return a new array of file, all we just have to do is to return a dispatch. We are going to dispatch a type of add file to list. And remember that this is just an array, then we can just pass the files itself. So there's nothing much there. We can just add a payload, because that's a conventional way of doing this most especially. So that will be it for dispatching a file or files into our initial state. So whenever we want to send our file, we have to trigger a method as well called send action, which is going to be an assign function as well. But this one does not really matter because we are not using something like then, or we are not, I don't think we are, okay, we are still going to dispatch, so we still need it. So we have to grab our state. So what this one is actually going to do is to bring those files for us. So we just have to use the get state once more, .media.file list. So whenever we want to send those files, this is exactly what we want to do. So it's going to grab those files for us, and it's going to make use of form data. So let's just go ahead and create a form. Let me just use the form, which is going to be a new form. So forgive me guys for these mistakes. So because we want to make a post request, we are going to be making use of the form data, but we have to append values to the form data. So that's why I brought in the form data. So what I just have to do is to loop through our files. So remember that our files is an array of files. So but I don't want to confuse things together. Let me just console.log files, and let's go over to our index.js to make use of that action. So in our index.js, I have to bring in the send action. So if there is a better way for you to use your reducer, it all depends on your choice. But for me, I strongly do prefer this. So it kind of makes things look more beautiful for me. Of course, you can use any way to dispatch. So let me just quickly bring in the click handler, which is going to return a send action. Or let's just do it this way so that we don't delay things together. So let's go ahead and try what we've just done. So whenever we select image files, we can be able to click on send to dispatch or to send those files to our server. So I'll just quickly select files, and when we click on send, we are supposed to be getting back those files, but actually we got nothing, and I think it's because we didn't actually inject that through our reducer. But before we inject that into our reducer, let's go ahead and settle once and for all for this one, because we want the image that we selected to have a preview by itself on our page. So let's go ahead and do that before we go over to the reducer. So if you can remember, we have our state map to media prop. So I'm just going to go to at the top here. So going to use the media to bring that out. Then I can comment or remove some of this line of code. Let me just comment it so that you can, even if you have the source code, you can understand what we did it actually. So I have to loop through those files for media. We have to map it to file. Then we return a JSS. So I have to bring this down here. So there's nothing much. It's just that whenever we select an image, we want it to actually show the preview of that image immediately. So for this one, we have to make use of the file totally, because we have to preview the image. So you just have to use the create object URL file. So if you go over to our page, you can actually see nothing because nothing is contained in our reducer. So let's go ahead and add the logic that's going to make these images to show for us from our reducer, which is going to inject those files we are going to get from the payload into our file list. Right now in our reducer, we just have to get the file list from our state. Then we can use state.filelist.filter as well. Same thing we did for the media action. Then we want to get the file name is not in the payload. So let's kind of console.log the payload from there. So we're now going to delay a little more. We just need to speed things up right now. So you can see those files that we injected are there. And also when we click on the send button, it should definitely grab those files forward, because this has actually shot into our file list. Let's go over to media actions, get state media. Let me just get rid of this now. So let's try that again. It says file list array of nothing. Sorry guys, I used the wrong method to inject this. That's why, because this does not have to be a filter. This has to be a concate actually. So in the file list, we just have to get our files from our states. Then because it's an array, we just have to concate it together to the payload, which is also an array, because it's an array of file. So let's save that and come over to our media actions. I think it should work properly now. So let me just clear my console before I start. Of course, that's not a problem, but you can see that we have the preview of the image that we just selected, which is actually meaning that it's working. And when I select more, you can actually see more of those images are showing, which means we have our files in our state. And even if we select a single file 2 times, it's not going to actually inject that, because in the media actions, we only filtered out the ones that the names are not already in the existing files. So that's how we did it. So it's actually giving us a warning that we don't have a unique ID. So come over to your index pages file, give it a key of file.name, so that each one of them we have its unique name. So when we clear that and try that again, so you can see we have more images added and no image has a duplicate, which looks perfect. So right now, let's go over to our actions, which is the send action. So when we click on send, we are going to actually grab those files. But what we want to do right now is to add those files to our form data. So what I have to do is to make sure that we have something in the file list. Then if it's more than 0, so that we don't send wrong values or send empty values. So actually what I have to do is to check if files.length is greater than 0. What I have to do right now is to append that to the form. I think we can use files for each of those files, because it's an array of files. We can use form.append that. Let me just give this a media, then we can pass our file. So let me just change this to single file.